Hi and welcome back. Okay, before we take this into UDK, there is a very important step that we have to pay attention to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this small wall and I want to export this into UDK to show you what the problem is. I'm going to zero out the box in the 3ds Max, and I'm going to go to File, Export, Export Selected, and then I'm going to go to let's say my desktop, and over here on my desktop I'm going to name this testing, and I'm going to say save. Again, in the geometry, make sure you have smoothing group selected, and in the embed media, make sure you have that checked as well. Press OK, wait for it to export, and then we are going to go open up UDK. Okay, I have UDK open now. I'm going to close this in the content browser. In case if you have content browser closed, you can click on this icon over here to open up content browser. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to go and open up this piece of software so that you can see the shortcuts I'm pressing. I'm going to close this back to UDK. I'm going to go to import, and I'm going to go to desktop and testing right there. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to call this testing, doesn't matter. And I'm going to say import material and texture. Make sure you check these. These are by default unchecked. Make sure you check them and press OK. And that will import your models in here. And if I go into the testing package at the very end, I have a new testing package. There's my static mesh. If I put my static mesh here, and another thing to mention is by default your viewport probably looks like this. It's big. In order to get all 4 viewports, you can click on this arrow here, or this icon. You can see your view here. So I'm going to select the box that I just brought in, and it's over here. And I'm going to select it, and I'm going to hold Alt and duplicate it and put it next to it. And then I will just take another copy of that as well and put that there. So what I have here is all these 3 assets together. Now if I go to build lighting and click on OK so that it starts building the light. Okay, lighting's been built, and this is the result. If I was to play this game, you can see that it does not look good. It doesn't look good because I can see where the seams are. I can see where one box finishes and the other box begins. And this is not very good. What we want to do, we want to make sure that we get rid of this error here. And if I look at it from the other side, there's still a tiny bit of error visible here as well, but it's more evident on this other side here. Okay. In order to fix this problem, we have to do that inside 3ds Max. So I'm going to close UDK, and I'm going to go back to my 3ds Max file. Now in 3ds Max, I'm just going to isolate this section so you can see it. We have already unwrapped this box. The box has been unwrapped. It has the UVs laid out. But once it has been unwrapped, I want to put a new unwrap on it again. And if I open this, that's the unwrap that we have, and that's how that looks, and that's fine. But what we are going to do now, we are going to put a new channel in there. So where's this map channels? I want to click on that. So it says 2. Now this is really badly worded, if you like. This is telling you if you want to move your current layout to the new channel, or you don't want to do that, or if you want to leave it and you want the new channel to have a clear UVs, if you like. In this case, we're going to click on move. But if you ever want to go back to channel 1, make sure you click on abandon. So what's happening right now is, to explain what we are doing, is UDK tends to have a light map or a shadow map, which will create or draw the shadows in UDK on your objects, and hence why we were seeing these seams in UDK. What we need to do, we need to make sure that we divide our subdivision, our UVs, sorry, and how we lay this out will not affect what we see here, because what we see here depends on our map channel 1, not map channel 2. Map channel 2 is only for our shadow maps. The shadow maps inside UDK are 32 by 32. So consider this box here being 32 pixels by 32 pixels. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to space out all of these polygons next to each other and put a good distance between them so that we don't have bleeding of shadows between these two different objects. Now, what we really want to do is go to preferences, and what you need to have in mind is that from here, that's 0, that's 1, that's 0, that's 1. That's your U, that's your V, and we have from 0 to 1. If it's 0 to 1 here, and there's going to be 32 pixels, what we need to do is open up the calculator and say 1 divided by 32, we get this number. If I copy this number and take it into options, preferences, and in the grid size, I delete that, press Ctrl V to paste that there, and press OK, and also go to view, show grid, so I can see the grid. Now these grid points, consider each of these being a pixel. Imagine if each of these was a pixel. And we would want to make sure, let me just turn this off so we can just see the grid. We would want to make sure that these vertices, they all snap to the grid. So I could turn my grid on, for example, and then try to get them all to snap to grid points. So I could select them all and move them here, and that would all to some degree snap to the grid point. That snaps to the grid point, but this does not snap to the grid point, and this at this part here. Now, it could take quite a long time to go and fix this and lay them all out, and it's not something very ideal considering you have already laid out the UVs. In order to cut down the process time here, what we could do, we could go to Photoshop. If I open up Photoshop here, I could create a new file and make this 2 pixels by 2 pixels for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in all the way into this, and I'm going to get my pencil tool, and I'm going to get black, and I'm going to paint, make sure the opacity is 100%, get a black, paint there, black, paint there. So I've made my own checkered box, each of these being one single pixel. And I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to say define pattern, and I'm going to call this pattern 2. Okay, now that I have pattern 2, I can create a new file. This one is going to be 32 by 32 because that's how big the size of the shadow maps is. And then here I want to fill this up with my color. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the paint bucket tool, and I'm going to click here any color. Or what I could even do is change this from foreground to pattern, and then at the drop down menu here we could choose pattern here and click, and then that would create our pattern here. If there's too much, you could always reduce the opacity in order to have a better check-in pattern. So now we want to save this file, save as, and I'm going to save this in desktop 3. Yes, tutorials, video tutorial, theorist Max Mansion, and I'm going to save this here as a TGA file. TGA, I don't have TGA option here. It might be an error. So if I go to File, New, okay, let's go to File, New. Let's get 8-bit. Press OK, and then just repeat the same thing. Just put the check-in pattern here. Maybe reduce the opacity. Go to File, Save As. Do I get TGA now? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go to desktop. So that had to be 8-bit. Sorry. Tutorials, Theorist Max Mansion. I'm going to change this to TGA, and I'm going to name this Check it, whatever. I'm going to call this Save. 32. Okay. And then inside Theorist Max, I want to go pick that texture. So bitmap and we want to go find our folder again, in my case being here, the TGA check. Okay, now what I see here is my checkered box, and if you look at this, each of those boxes that I made fit perfectly in here. So each of these right now are basically a pixel. Now the quickest way to do this, especially for an object like this which doesn't have many sides, we could select them all, or do a Control A, press F2 to make sure that you have everything selected. We can go to mapping and flatten mapping, you know, I like to say face angle threshold 0, and press OK. And what this will do is it will separate these out for us. But these edges, like in this case for example, it's not sitting on the pixel. We want to make sure that they do sit on the pixels. Also, we want to have good spacing or more spacing between them. So what I want to do is I want to Control Z that out. In flatten mapping, I want to say give me more spacing here. So now there's a greater distance between them. You would want there to be at least 2 pixel distance between them. What we're going to do now, rather than snap into grid, we're going to snap to pixels. Sorry. Once you go here, you can just give this a little massage, so to speak, and they will all snap to your pixels. In this case, it took a very short amount of time to do that. So one thing to have in mind is, number one, make sure you have at least 1 pixel distance from the edge of the grid. So don't put this here, make sure there's at least 1 grid distance. And between each of these islands, make sure you have at least 2 pixels. In this case I have 3, here I have 2, here I have 2, again here I have 3, I have 3 here. So this is good. Once I'm happy with this, I can say convert to ideal poly. That's done. So I will do this one more time. Exit isolation. Now let's do this other one, for example. Again, let me isolate it. It's already unwrapped. I'm gonna put a unwrap modifier on top of this, and I don't want to alter what I have already unwrapped, so I will not alter map channel 1. I will go to map channel 2 and say move, open UV editor, pick the texture, which was the checkered box here. Okay, and Control A to select all the polygons, mapping, flatten mapping, 0 spacing by, let's say, 0.05, press OK, and it distributes them all out like this. And what I want to do here now, make sure I'm snapping to pixels, and then just massage this a little bit. Now let's have a look at this line that we have here. This line is literally not even a pixel, it's just between the 2 pixels. Where is that? That's this box here. You don't want this. You want to make sure that all of these have at least some sort of depth. So I'm going to go to my edge mode, select this edge, or should I say these 2 edges, and then I'm going to move them. Oops. Make sure we select both and move that one up. It's difficult in this case, as you can see, it's difficult to select both. I could here loop it and try to move it, and it doesn't allow, because they're right on top of each other, it doesn't allow me to move them both at the same time. So it only moves one. That's fine. When I move one, I can select the other edge. I can go to select and then convert edge to vertex. So now it selects the vertices connected to that edge. This one I don't need to have selected because I have already changed it anyway. So that one I will move up here. So now, if I go and select this, at least that has now got its own area. Also, for cases like this, you want to make sure that it's best not to have diagonal lines. There's nothing much wrong with it, but it's better not to have that. So I'm going to select this and just make sure I put this down. And then let's select everything again, make sure they all have their own good distances. Here, for example, this needs to be at least 2 pixels away. What we could do now, we could click on select by element UV toggles. That will select the entire island as one individual islands. So it's easier to select them and move them around. So let's have a look. Again, this one, I prefer it for it not to be so close to the edge. So I'm going to bring that here, and I think I might need to rotate it as well to let's say 90 degrees, and then put it here. Okay. Also, what you want to do is go to select, and you can only do that while you're in polygon mode. Go to select, select inverted faces. You do not want to have any inverted faces, and you do not want to have any overlapped faces. So here, when I go to select overlapped faces, it doesn't select anything, which means I don't have anything overlapped. But if I go to select and say inverted faces, it's giving me these two, which means at this stage I have these two polygons which are not receiving a pixel. So in this case, what I would need to do is to go to my edge mode and select this loop, for example, or these two edges, and just make sure I turn off select by element. Select this loop. Again, the same problem is happening here, so I need to select the edge that I can move properly. Select edge to vertex, deselect the one which I've already moved, and move this one up. And probably the same thing with this line here. Again, move that up, select this edge, select edge to vertex, deselect that, and push this up here. Now if I go to select and say, in polygon mode, select inverted, I have none, but I still need to check for overlapped, and I don't have anything overlapped, which shows that these are all receiving their appropriate pixels. That's great. I'm happy with this. I'm going to convert it to Ideal Poly. I will do one last one, and then I will go ahead and apply this technique to all of my objects, and we'll export the map. So let's do, let's do a more complicated one. Now this one we could do, let's do this one. Let's isolate it first of all. Put a unwrap UV on top, open UV editor. And before I open UV editor, sorry, I need to go to map channel tool because I don't want to be affecting these UV. So map channel tool, and I want to move, and then I want to open UV editor, and I want to pick my texture, because as you can see right now, if I was to show you my grid, and then if I was to put that number in here again, you can see the default grid in 3ds Max does not match with the sorry, the default checkered texture does not match with our locking of the grid, so it doesn't go with the line. So if I was to go to here and say pick texture, and I was to choose the texture I made, then you can see these are all snapped together, which is exactly what we need. So what I want to do, I would like to go ahead excuse me, this tower, I could select just one polygon and then say grow, 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 because this pillar is not attached to these polygons or these vertices. They're different elements. So for now, I'm just gonna move these away up to here. I'm gonna select all of this and move them over here. Now I want to select everything that I have here. I'm going to go to mapping, flatten mapping, and I want to say okay. I'll get the mapping with the low distance. Then I'll go ahead and fix that myself. Try to put sort out the distances myself. So I can now again snap to vertices and give this a little massage. They will all snap to the pixels, but I'm sure I have many inverted faces. So if I go to invert faces, you can see I have all of this. I'm going to turn the grid off for now. You can see that I have many inverted faces. We'll go and fix those as well. It's not a problem. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start with this top one. So let's select this element and have a look at it. It's over here, and what we want to do is we could try flatten mapping that one object again, and where is it? It's jumped down here. Okay, I could put that up here, and I could try to scale it down a little bit. Because I've got 4 vertices there, or 4 loops there, 4 polygons there, I need to have 4 I need to have at least 4 pixels assigned to them. So if I was just to select that again, I can for now move those over here. You don't want anything to be overlapping, and I want to make sure that it's about 1 pixel away from the border. It's not essential. If you have to, you could go and leave that there, but it's better if you don't. So that one's sorted. So I could go to select invert faces. So that one is no longer highlighted. So next one is this element here. I can do a separate flatten mapping on that on its own, and then I could get the scale tool and just scale this down. And as long as I don't go past 4 pixels, I should be okay. I could then just go and put this underneath that one, and we would want to have 2 pixel distance between them. And I might select this one and make it just a tiny bit smaller as well. And let's go again to select selected faces. Let's solve this one again. Might do a flatten mapping just on that and scale it down. Where is that? This is the inside. Okay, let's put that here with 2 pixels space. That should be okay. Now let's go ahead and again select inverted. Okay, I have 1 here. I need to see what that is. I thought that was solved. Let's go ahead and select that. Okay, let's go to edge mode. Select this edge, this edge, and this edge, and I believe this one. Okay, let's just go to select polygon mode, go to select invert faces. Let's see something here. So that means I need to go to my edge mode, turn that off, and just move this down here. And if you go to select polygon mode, select inverted faces, that one is still the case there. I think the problem here is that I moved the edges the wrong way, so that one has to be up, this one has to be down. So if I go back to my polygon mode and then say select inverted faces, that should be off, and it is. Great. So that one's fixed, that one's fixed. We have this tiny one here. Let's see what this one is. Where is that? Okay, it's up there. And what I might do to make this easier for myself, I might go select all of these together. So they become one continuous piece. It will make my job easier, so I don't have to worry about doing all of this together, making sure that I don't have anything else selected on the other side by mistake. And I go to mapping and go unfold mapping and press OK, and now they've been merged together. What I could do now is try to scale these down a little bit. And 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons, so at least 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices. Okay, and let's move that over to here. So let's go to select inverted faces. I have 1 inverted face here, so I think I might need to select this loop and just move it across. Let's see what that is, where that is. That one could very well actually be a modeling error. Select inverted faces. Nope, seems like it fixed it. Something tiny in there. Hope it's nothing. Select inverted faces. Sorry. What I might do in this case is go ahead and let's see, which one do I want to fix next. First of all, let's select this element here, and that's this, and it seems to be taking a little bit of too much space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a mapping, unfold mapping on this, and I'm just going to go scale it down. And I'm going to have that up here. I might select this element and move it out of the way for now. If I go to select and say invert selected, do I have anything selected here? Yes, I do. I have this edges here selected, so I might want to move this around. But before I do that, let's have like, actually I could just move that there, and it should hopefully be fine. So select in polygon mode, select invert selected. Nope, that's still, so I think that might have to be on the other side. So back to polygon mode, select invert selected. There's still something here. I might just move that, oops, just this tool here, and just this one over. Okay, oh, I see, so that needs to have its own space. If I was to move that there, move this here, and move that. If I was to hide that for a sec so I could see what's going on exactly. Okay, so that point would have to be here, and that would have to be there. Okay, that makes much more sense now. So if I go here and say invert selected, I have something here as well. So if I was to move the edges around to see what's going on exactly, maybe that would fix it. So if I go to select invert selected, great. Now in this shape I have nothing inverted, which is very good. What I might do is just move these ones with, oops, 1 pixel. Okay, so go back to polygon mode, invert selected. We have an element here that needs fixing, so I go to mapping and say unfold, okay, and it puts it there. We can just scale it down. You don't necessarily have to see the vertices for this to work. Invert selected, there's still an inverted point here. Okay, select invert. Okay, I think the positioning of these two is wrong. Okay, so which area is this anyway? Okay, so that's the bottom of the pillar, so I really don't mind about that. So all I want to do is just make it tiny and put it in the corner somewhere. That really doesn't matter. Select again in polygon mode, invert selected. Let's go and solve this issue, which I think this might be the other side. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do a flatten mapping on it, and I'm gonna make it very tiny and rotate it 90 degrees. Oops, and just put it next to the other one. I mean, they could be overlapping. This really doesn't matter, considering they're never going to be seen anyway. Let's go to the inverted selections again. I have this element here, which is same as that. So let's go and select this element and say do a unfold mapping in this, and maybe take it up with as much as possible and just bring it down here and scale it down a little. And let's go to select, inverse selected, and see if we have anything here. Yeah, we have the same problem here. So what I'm gonna have to do is select just this edge and move it across. Okay, I might need to make this slightly bigger. So move this across here, and again back to polygon mode, select inverted. I have this one edge here that needs some attention. I might just put that here, put this one there, and bring that. Actually, that might need to be. Oops. That might have to be here, here, and here. There might be some slight stretching the shadows there, but it's okay. So now let's go ahead and say select inverted. We have this element here, which seems to be top. Again, top is never going to be seen. So I might not worry about that too much. But still, let's just go do a unfold mapping on it and place it where it needs to be. Let's say around here. Just put that there. And you still want, even though they may not matter, you still want to make sure that they're 2 pixels away from the rest of the areas that do matter, because then their shadows could affect them. Again, select, inverse selected. Again, don't mind that. There is one here, so I'm going to select this element. That's the interior. That does matter. Where is the where are the other ones? Okay, that one's over there, so we could go. And what's this? Let's see what this is. Oh, okay, that's that. Okay, we could just bring that down a little. Mapping, unfold this, and put that over here. Again with 2 pixels. Just put these down here. I think we may still have some inverted here. Okay, so let's select just that one line and put that there. Back to polygon mode and say select, invert selected. Okay, that's good. Here we only have this area, which we don't really mind. Then we have this entire pillar, basically, which is fine. We can just put that around here somewhere. I could make this slightly smaller. Same with the other one, bring that in, make it slightly smaller. Then we have these areas, which are the top and bottom of this. I could select that and I could say mapping, unfold, and let's see what we get. Ooh, it's not very nice, because if that was here and I said select, invert selected, it'll have something there. Okay. Overall, it's still not too bad, but it's not a big deal, because you probably won't receive any shadows from anything anyway. The only problem is that we also have some of this selected. Okay, so I forgot to turn ignore backfacing off actually, so we don't want any of that. So we just want to be unfolding the top bit. So if I go here and say mapping, unfold, and press OK, it looks like that. I could say flatten mapping on that. Oof. Mapping, flatten mapping, 45. Okay. Mapping, flatten mapping, 75. Okay. Okay, let's just make these a little bit smaller and have them here. But unfold should work better in this case. Mapping, unfold. Let's do furthest. Let's just make this small. This one probably doesn't matter that much because the shadows won't be too close to each other. I'm just gonna select that as well. Just make it small. Place it around here somewhere. If you have any problems, we can of course always come back to these. So like what we have here. Mapping, unfold. Mapping. This one I might just do a normal and put that here. Now these ones and these ones and these ones, these are the ones that I don't really mind or care about too much because they're hardly ever going to be either receiving any shadows or they're not going to be seen much. So I don't mind where they are, but I do mind, and I want to make sure that they are at least 2 pixels away from the areas which do matter. So in this case I want to bring that here. Let's have a look. So this one's one of the important ones, but this cannot be so close to it, so I might need to select that and move it down by a pixel or so. That's fine. So I mean, even with the more complicated aspects you could do that as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to do the same with everything else, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thank you.